to be as measured as I can in my appraisal of Kalvin Phillips because I don't want to be seen to be kicking a man when he's down. I think he's an easy target at the moment. That being said, his time's up at West Ham. I probably thought he had no future at West Ham before he stuck his finger up at a fan or fans. We'll deal with that in just a second. But since he's done that, there's really no way back at all. Phillips is always going to have to, during the 3 games when Edson Alvarez was out, really, really impress. And I think he's probably made it so much so that he's not even selectable. I think what he needs to do is come on as a substitute, probably against Newcastle, be brilliant. Then claim the starting spot from James Ward-Prowse against Tottenham, play really, really well, and then sort of try and claim a spot for the game against Leverkusen. I can't think he'll get anywhere near the team now, not just because of his performance, but also because of him swearing at fans. Be interesting to see how the club reacts to that, actually. And I'm not mischief-making. I'm really not. I don't want to be seen to be saying, oh, yeah, I want the club to punish him and I want him to do this, that and the other. I think sometimes, you can punish yourself, and to look at Kalvin Phillips at the moment is to witness someone who's clearly struggling. I've already discussed it on the video with Chris Akabusi that we did, and I mentioned it in yesterday's video, how I had Chris Akabusi's words sort of ringing in my ear with Akabusi saying he's not up to it at the top level. That was physically. I think mentally he's probably shot at the moment anyway. And I do have a level of sympathy for him because I think you could possibly, as a sportsman, have all the riches in the world, but there must be a really stark reality check that he got the move to Man City and he'll never be the player that he once was. He's just not up to it at the moment. In terms of the fast-paced Premier League action, he's not there. I mean, what Chris said the other day was really quite prophetic, actually. It's turned out to, seems like it's turned out to come true very, very quickly. I look at it now and I think whoever made the decision, and I can only assume it's either David Sullivan or Tim Stuyton, made the decision not to insert that obligation to buy clause, which was wanted by Manchester City. I remember the story well at the time. I remember what was being leaked at the time. And we said no. Well, they said no. One of them two said no. David Moyes certainly wanted to sign a player and has wanted to sign a player for as long as he possibly can. So for about a year, well, 2.5 years actually. The obligation to buy clause was about 30 to 40 million. I think it was more like 40 million. I really think City would struggle to get much more than 10 for him now. That's how disastrous his loan spell at West Ham has been. And I think that can't be easy. That's got to be weighing really, really heavily on his mind. He's gone from being the Yorkshire hero and an England regular to being completely unselectable. And, probably thought he was coming from Man City to West Ham and possibly would walk into the team. And I think David Moyes, whilst I don't think David Moyes would have guaranteed him minutes at all, I do believe that there would have been some honest conversations and he would have probably said the similar sort of things that he said to Jesse Lingard. And I would imagine Moyes would have thought this would be a similar outcome to Jesse Lingard. So I would imagine this is pretty hard for him to accept Kalvin Phillips. And I imagine there's a lot of pressure comes with that. And I think that's what you saw when you saw him swearing at the fans. I think he's probably seen the pressure spill over there for him, really. And, I mean, talking about what happened with those fans, by the way, if you've seen a video clip, it's hard. I found it certainly hard to hear exactly the words that were said. But other people have sort of, I guess, they've listened to it, they've transcribed it, and somebody was saying to Kalvin Phillips, "Oi, you're useless." And that was amongst other things. And I think that's what's happened. Kalvin Phillips has got on the bus, and when someone said that, he's done that. Now, listen, I have to say, in all honesty, I don't know what I would do in such a situation. Well, I probably do. I mean, people call me useless on the YouTube channel every day. I probably don't respond particularly well. I don't know exactly how I would respond, I have to say. But I do think as a professional footballer, you are exactly that. You are a professional footballer. Nobody asks, I guess, to be an ambassador, but you are. And there's one thing I do know, because I've been around those environments before where people are waiting around by the team bus for players. And the thing is, it won't have just been the fan that called Kalvin Phillips useless. Well, firstly, I would expect a Premier League footballer to be able to handle more robust criticism than useless. I mean, let's be fair, harsher things can be said. But there won't have just been people there that would have been saying mean things to him. There would have been a whole number of people there who would have made a long journey to go to the northeast. You'd have had people there who were waiting for not just him, but all the West Ham players. Maybe they wanted a selfie. Maybe they wanted an autograph. Sometimes people wait around and they get the players' shirts. So there's a lot of that going on. And this is where I think it doesn't particularly have a good look. Because I think what was probably happening was when Kalvin Phillips walked onto that coach or that bus, and he basically stuck his finger up at the fans. Not only was he sticking his finger up at the person who was calling him useless, it's also a bad look because realistically he was sticking his finger up in the general direction of, and there were children there, because that's one thing you could hear. You could hear there were children's voices. He was sticking his finger up at possibly some of the kids who are waiting for a selfie or an autograph, and that's really bad. And I think when you do that, you've probably crossed the point of no return. And I think it's going to be really, really difficult for him now to make it, not just in a footballing comeback, to make a comeback with the fans. I really do think that's the case, because if he was getting a little bit of stick then, it's going to be worse now. There's going to be a lot of fans who are not happy with him doing that, and rightly so. It's not a good look. It's not a good thing to do. I'm not defending him, by the way, for doing it. Far from it. He should not have done it. But the fact he did do it shows that he is not in the correct mental state to be playing football. So I think physically he can't play and mentally he can't play as well. And if he's going to just get more stick now. That's the thing. Most people would have had enough sort of calmness about them to know, actually, this will get a lot worse if I start doing that. And he did do it, really. So I don't think it's a good look for him at all. And I think it's just going to rebound really, really badly on him. I'll deal in a second with what I think David Moyes is going to do about this. But before we talk about what David Moyes is going to do and what the club are going to do about this, can I please point you in the direction of today's video sponsor, which is Match Bingo. What's Match Bingo, I hear you ask? Well, I'll tell you what, plainly and simply, it's an app where you lot are winning a lot of money. We said just before the Newcastle game we'd had over 20 winners. I think now it's over 25. Almost every game week, Hammers Chat, and you guys that are watching these videos, we're having about 5 winners a week. There's big prize money being won by an awful lot of people. And the best thing about this app is it either costs nothing to play, or the maximum stake is £2. It's brilliant. Honestly, they're one of the best sponsors we've ever had. They've combined bingo and they've combined football. How does that work, I hear you ask? Well, you get a card, basically. 15 incidents have to happen throughout the game. You get 3 lines of 5. It's basically a bingo card. Things like a throw-in, a shot, a substitution. You don't pick it, they pick it for you. It's randomised, but people are winning on this stuff. So you look at your card and it ticks it off for you. You haven't even got to tick it off. Like normal bingo, you'd sit there, 2 fat ladies, 22. Tick, you do it and you tick it off yourself. It ticks it off for you. If you win, they tell you you've won and they pay you out. Look, the link is in the description below. Match Bingo app. Please use that link and they'll know you've come from Hammers Chat. It's absolutely brilliant. It is a betting app, so over 18s and above. Bet responsibly. You've got to say that stuff, bet responsibly. What are you going to do with £2? I mean, come on, you're not going to be able to empty your holiday fund, are you? Unless you've got those sort of 99p sun holidays, then you might do. They probably don't do those anymore. That was probably a long, long time ago, wasn't it? Check it out. Brilliant, brilliant people for us to work with as terms of partners in terms of Hammers Chat. But in terms of you guys just watching the video, they're paying out. Go and give it a whirl. Go and try the free games, try bingos. Have a look at the app. Knock yourself out. David Moyes. What's David Moyes going to do about this? Whilst I said that I do believe Kalvin Phillips is probably unselectable now, David Moyes won't see it that way. I mean, let's be fair. You've only got to look at how he stuck by Kurt Zouma. But there may well be a difference. I'm sorry, obviously I'm talking about Kurt Zouma, and Kurt Zouma kicked his pet cat around the kitchen. And he stuck by him. David Moyes just stuck by him. He selected him straight away. I think there's two differences here, and well, the first one is obviously Kalvin Phillips has not done something that's going to make the whole of the football world and animal lovers worldwide basically start booing him. He's not done that. He's annoyed the West Ham fans. That's difference number one. Number two is what's going to happen is David Moyes does not need Kalvin Phillips. I think David Moyes could sort of drop his moral compass, if you like, because he needed Kurt Zouma. I do wonder what would happen if Zuma did that now, the current sort of broken Kurt Zuma. You may well find it was a slightly different outcome. But Kalvin Phillips, he doesn't need him. He really, really doesn't need him. So it may well be an excuse enough to drop him. Quite possibly the club will find Kalvin Phillips. Let's be fair, his wages are so great. It'd be a good excuse for him to do that. Not that I hope they do. I don't hope they do. Look, we've got a contract. I've seen people saying, just send it back now. I don't know. I don't know if he's in breach of his loan agreement and we can. I think, again, that possibly wouldn't help the player, and I doubt we can. So I think it's a case of our fingers have been burnt with it. We're going to lose that money. Whatever the loan agreement was, so there was a loan fee and the wages, anything between 5 and 7 million, it's just money lost. We've lost that money. But I can't help but think, thank goodness, absolutely thank goodness that we didn't pay that money and we didn't buy him outright. I mean, to lose 5 and 7 million and to learn your lesson, I think we can consider that a lucky escape rather than money lost, because there's certain people that have had their way. We would have paid £40 million for him. So I think that's not a great thing. Also, I just want a little word for Flynn Downes, actually. I did agree with the premise of bringing in Kalvin Phillips. Made absolute sense to me, because Edson Alvarez is always going to miss games. Edson Alvarez is going to miss 10 games every season, what with suspensions because he can't help himself, and of course because he always comes back from Mexico knackered, plus he's going to pick up injuries and whatnot. I thought having a defensive midfielder that could play that role was sensible. I really did. So actually the premise of bringing one in, I thought was sound. I would have liked the wingers as well. I would have liked the striker, but I understood the reasoning. I did think we were light in midfield. And I thought Phillips would be okay. I certainly didn't know that he would have degenerated to the point that he has. But for Flynn Downes, we've actually got somebody who is on West Ham's books. And I don't think I'm being unreasonable here. I mean, I'm sure someone will pick me up on it. But the way I see it now, Flynn Downes is 10 times, 5 times, whatever, significantly better than Kalvin Phillips. Did Kalvin Phillips play for England? No, probably not. But that Kalvin Phillips doesn't exist anymore as far as I'm concerned. He certainly doesn't exist at West Ham. Certainly doesn't exist at Manchester City. I hope for him, because he look, we can all make mistakes, and I think he made a mistake the other day, and I don't think just because he did that, he's turned into a nasty guy. I think he probably still is a nice guy. I mentioned it before, he was the only person at the initial point when the Belfast Hammers, who were going to celebrate their sort of 25 years of being the Belfast Hammers, basically, they asked for West Ham players to send them in goodwill messages. He was the first one to have done it, and up to a point, and to be fair, I haven't checked for a month or so, was the only player to have done it. And sent them a proper little video message. He sent them on WhatsApp. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a nice guy. I think pressure's got the better of him. And as I say, I honestly can't say what I would do in such an instance. I'd like to think I wouldn't do that, particularly if there was kids there. If there was one person on his own, he was giving me a load of nonsense. I don't know. I don't know. But his time was finished at West Ham. And there's no excuse for him. There's none. There's no excuse. He can't make an excuse, and none should be made for him. But I hope he gets his career back on track. I just sort of hope it's elsewhere. And I do hope that now we've either realised the error of our ways, or we do bring Flynn Downes back. Now we can't bring him back, and that was a flaw in whatever loan agreement we had with Southampton. There should have been some clause. I don't even know if you could do that, but if you could, I would have put a recall clause in January. I'm quite sure you can do that. Why couldn't you? There's employment laws and things like that. You should be able to do such a thing. And that's a real shame that we didn't do that, because in hindsight, it may well be, because this was always going to be the pivotal time, Edson Alvarez being out for these 3 games. And I actually thought that this may well cost us, Edson Alvarez being out. Now, look, I've spent the last 2 days having a go at David Moyes for his tactics, and that remains the case. And I also do believe that it was I think on other instances and other circumstances, that penalty doesn't get given. However, it's not just one incident, is it? There's lots of them. I still think he was too easily turned by Harvey Barnes. There's no one to blame but Kalvin Phillips for that himself. It's just not worked out. And for that reason, I was going to go all, Dragon's Den now, Duncan Bannatyne. But he's not there anymore, apparently. But what he would have said was, Duncan Bannatyne would have said, for that reason, I'm out.